Forest Ridge third graders, welcome. Welcome kindergarten from Hillsborough, welcome third graders. Hello to everyone, welcome. Hello from Willamette Elementary. Hi, kindergartners. Hi, third graders. Welcome to everyone. Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual farm field trip. We are live today in Sherwood, Oregon at Alpacas of Oregon. My name is Mariana and I will be the moderator today. Before we start our tour today, I wanted to go over a few logistics to make sure we have a great experience. We've muted everyone and everyone will remain muted throughout the tour so everyone can hear our tour guide clearly. If you have questions, you can send them to us using the chat feature, and please only type questions to us in the chat. This will help us see questions and ask as many as possible. It is now my pleasure to introduce our host and tour guide for today's virtual field trip, Doug Campbell. Take it away, Doug.
Hello, everyone. I am here at Alpacas of Oregon. We've been raising alpacas in Sherwood for about 20 years. And this has been something that I've grown into. It was my wife's idea originally. These are alpacas. Alpacas are camelids. That means they're descendants of camels. Their ancestors are camels. So somehow a camel got from the Sahara Desert in Africa to the Andes, the high Andes Mountains in South America. They didn't like that weather, so they evolved. They became guanacos and vicuñas. A guanaco domesticated by it's like a wolf to a dog. A domesticated guanaco is a llama. A domesticated vicuña is an alpaca. It's all one family. Alpacas are fancy sheep. So they're raised for fiber. You give them a haircut once a year. That's called shearing. We do that in May, Memorial Day weekend. These guys live in the part of the Andes Mountains that is very, very high, called the Alto Plano, the high desert. They live anywhere from 2,000 to 16,000 feet. Mount Hood is less than 12,000. So they're in a very, very cold, harsh environment. They are dressed for that. They've evolved to have this warm fiber. It's one of the warmest, softest things in nature. Most alpacas, you're going to get between 2 and 6 pounds off their back, which is where you actually use for yarn. You spin it into yarn. Old-timey spinning wheels are involved. And then you knit with it and you make hats and scarves and sweaters and gloves. My wife, Suzanne, is a spinner. She has spinning wheels. That's what led her to this. I'm a city kid. This was nothing I ever planned. I just married a girl with alpacas and stopped saying no eventually. So like a camel, these guys have split toes. Notice they do not have hooves. Their feet have, if you pick them up, the bottom of them look and feel just like dog's pads. And the toenails are a little leathery. We use rose pruners to trim those every about 4 months. You kind of notice the teeth on the bottom of an alpaca because they don't have teeth on the top. They actually have a hard palate. She has molars up there, but nothing in front. See, that's why those bottom teeth are so obvious. So when an alpaca eats grass, it traps it with its mouth and it jerks its head up and cuts it on those teeth, kind of like a lawnmower. They can't pull it out by the roots like a goat. So they're super green, environmentally friendly animals. They don't have hooves to tear up the ground. They can't pull out the grass by the roots. With alpacas, there's always a pecking order. There's always somebody in charge. Where the boss alpaca goes to the bathroom, they all go in the same place, and that is super good fertilizer. We occasionally sell that and less than a quarter mile is a winery that trades us wine for poop, so we like them. Alpacas are very beautiful animals. There's 22 different colors. Let's talk for a minute about the difference between alpacas and llamas. Alpacas and llamas are in the same family. These, like I said, are kind of like fancy sheep. Girls average about 150 pounds. Really big girls, maybe 175. Boys, up to 200. So think about the size of a big dog. Llamas are 2 to 3 times that size. Llamas, not all of them are, but llamas like alpacas all have different attitudes. They're all different personalities. They're all different colors. But big llamas, I have literally held a llama that was 7 feet tall and over 450 pounds. A llama is not a fancy sheep. They're a mule. So they, in South America, carry things all over the place. They're like a mini camel. The average llama can carry the weight of the average alpaca on their back. Llamas also are used, especially in the United States, to guard other livestock. If you have 200 sheep and goats and you want to protect her, and you've got a problem with, say, coyotes, which are always a predator, you want to put a big dominant male llama in there. That llama is going to adopt that herd, and they're going to say, these are my sheep, these are my goats, I'm going to protect them. So anybody or anything that walks up to that fence is going to get spit at in the face until they leave. And that's a llama doing its job. And that's why we don't raise llamas. I don't like getting spit at either. Alpacas spit too, every day, mainly at each other. They say, I'm first, spit, spit, spit. So there's always basically a hierarchy. You always have one that's in charge. In here, there's a girl named Coco who just won't be denied. She's the dominant one. So another thing to look at with all these animals here, there's 22 shades of color with alpaca. In Peru, they want white because they add really bright natural dyes. They like bright clothing. For instance, red is a crushed up beetle, and that's applied to white fiber, and now it's red yarn, so you get red clothes. The colored animals down here, a lot of them, they would ship off to other places. If you look at their registration, where you actually see who all their parents and grandparents are, a lot of the colored ones actually came from someplace other than Peru. The Peruvians are the ones that created this animal through selective breeding. A lot of places like Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, up in the mountains, that's where a lot of the color ones wound up. So these guys are very smart for livestock. If it rains hard, they come in out of the rain on their own. For me, I was a city kid. I'm from Lake Oswego. I had never seen these before. And I started dating my wife, Suzanne. This year will be 30 years ago. She introduced me to them, and I said, wow, they're so cute. But you're living in an apartment and you're paying a farm on Crosstown in Hillsboro to board them for you. When are you going to sell them? And she said, honey, I need your help. Can you help me name them? Well, once you name an animal, they're yours. So we are the first alpaca farm in the United States with animals registered with Star Wars names. And that was 30 years ago. But they're fun. They're curious. Like I said, they're smart for livestock. They come and group up for safety in the barn by themselves. They come and go. You can kind of see how this barn is set up. It has an open side. So alpacas get to go in and out of the barn all day long. They go down and eat grass and take naps, and they come in when they want to. And it's a great way for them to kind of manage themselves.
Doug, we do have a few questions from our students.
Yes.
Our
Okay.
first one is, how long do alpacas live?
Great question. Alpacas live about as long as a cat, late teens or early 20s. The oldest alpaca we've had here was 25 years old. We've got some alpacas waiting out here. We've got two girls that are a year and a half, and the other four animals are 6 and 7 months old. So these are babies. Let's go
And
see them.
then our students are also wondering, how many alpacas do you have?
So we average between 40 and 50 alpacas. Right now we have about 40, but we have about 8 or 9 girls pregnant for next year. So we just packs a year, and they are so fun. Most people that buy them have moved to the country, and maybe they already have a fence and a barn, and the last owner had sheep or something. And this is a super easy animal for young kids to learn how to raise. Or maybe mom's a spinner and she likes to knit and she wants to make things out of their fiber. So these guys out here, this one is named Roslyn. This is Stevie Nicks, Justice. This is Denarius. And this one right here is named Pebbles. Remember, I talked about Coco, the alpha. She's the one in charge, the boss lady alpaca. This is her daughter. This is Pebbles. She's kind of the boss too. But they are very curious. They're very cute. When alpacas greet each other, they like to touch noses and boop each other. And sometimes they do it to people just like that. Hi, Daenerys. How are you
Our
today?
school,
Yes, sir.
Desert Sky Montessori, wants to know if alpacas have predators, and if they do, what are they?
Yes, they do. So these are herd animals, kind of like sheep. Um, they stick together in a group. We have this fencing is primarily for coyotes. There are packs of coyotes that live around us, and you hear them almost every night. Without good fencing, we would lose animals. The other thing we really have to worry about are neighborhood dogs. If 2 or 3 dogs they want to play and chase, well, that what happens is it's a pack mentality, and that turns into hunting. And unfortunately, dogs sometimes can kill alpacas. So you have to be careful and make sure you have good fencing, because nobody wants that. We've never had a problem. Next door, we have a winery. The owner over there, Diane, tells me about every 3 to 4 months, they spot mountain lions on a trail camera right next door. Thank God we've never had a problem with them. But yes, we do have predators.
Our
So
student
we're going to
Quade,
walk up around.
we do have another question. Our student
What's
Quade is
that?
wondering what the most common color of alpacas is.
Good question. So because the Peruvians have bred specifically for white for almost 4,000 years, they have changed the color dominance of this animal to white. The only thing that is sure when you're breeding these is two whites always make white. We, of course, want every color because one color is boring. I want all the, hey, Pokemon Go, collect them all. This is the rarest color. This is gray. This is Denarius. She's so beautiful. You get a lot of browns and tans and fawns when you're breeding for color. Black is hard to get and gray is hard to get. White is the most common. On a lot of alpaca farms, especially in Peru, all they have is white. So we're going to walk up behind the property here. My wife, actually, I told you that she takes raw back and she puts it on a spinning wheel and she makes yarn and then she knits with it. But we actually have opened what's called a fiber mill. My wife and one of her partners has opened the Oregon Fiber Mill Company here on our property. And instead of doing all of the preparation with yarn by hand, we have a couple big machines that do it for us. So we're going to go around the corner and take a look.
Our students are wondering if alpacas like to get sheared.
They don't like the process. It's kind of scary, but once it's off their back, they're very happy because It's before it gets too hot in Oregon. So we're going to basically make sure that they don't overheat. Snow and ice and rain aren't a challenge for alpacas. Heat is. So this machine, you would put either sheep's wool or alpaca on this. You turn this on and this conveyor belt moves it in. You see the spikes that rotates and then it sucks all the debris into that big tent. This is called a picker. So it picks out all the debris, all the dirt, all the stuff you don't want in your fiber anymore, because you don't want to wear a sweater with dirt built into the yarn, right? So that's called a picker. And this takes what this produces, it runs through here. See all these wire brushes, see the fiber on there? It actually combs it so it all goes one direction and it comes out, in a long shape, almost about the size of a burrito. And then that's called roving. And then the roving, a spinner would take and put on a spinning wheel and spin it into yarn. So you would take that and then knit a clothes with it. There's only 3 things in nature softer than an alpaca: silk, which is obvious, cashmere. Cashmere is available off a rabbit or a goat. Those animals you shear between 2 and 4 times a year, you get 1 to 2 pounds. An alpaca, it's 1 time a year, you're getting 2 to 6 pounds. So some of those girls out there are wearing 6 Peruvian sweaters right now, which is why you have to get that off their back before we get in the middle of summer and we have long hot spells. Cool.
Our
Well,
students
let's
are
go back.
wondering
Go ahead.
if you export the fur to other countries.
No, we don't to other countries, but we sell it locally. Um, so we actually sell alpaca fiber off their backs on shearing day. We will have a lot of people here that come and help us hold the animals. And we have my wife is in the Aurora Spinners Guild. So her spinner friends will come and they will actually buy it right as it comes off the animal. As a matter of fact, all of the gray animals on our property, with the exceptions of the ones my wife wants to keep, are already spoken for and pre-sold. We also sell yarn, but we do that locally here on the farm because we do tours for people like what I'm doing right now, where you can sign up online on our website, alpacasoforegon.com, and you pay for an hour to hang out with alpacas and you get to hear all about them from me or my son, who's 20. His name's Connor.
How long does it take to shear an alpaca, clean the wool, and turn it into yarn?
Oh, that's a complex question. A long time. Let's talk about shearing. Shearing, our shearer shears 1 alpaca in about 8 minutes. But we have around 40 animals here. We've been selling alpacas for 20 years. So a lot of the smaller farms that we sell to come back and they shear together. We basically do it as a community. So we have groups of guys that and women that take turns holding the alpacas for the shearer. It takes 2 people to hold them, and we move for the shearer, and they shear kind of basically down the middle of their back and then in lines. And if you catch it, it comes off in 1 sheet. To shear 1 alpaca is going to take about 8 minutes, but we will shear between 60 and 100 alpacas in 1 day. And that'll be a 9+ hour day. This is Pebbles again. She's saying hi. Hi, how are you? So Pebbles, when they are babies like this, their fiber is so fine, it's kind of like Velcro. See all this stuff stuck in here? If I stuck my hands in here, she might run away, but oh, she did. My hand would go in about that far. So if you look, there's probably a pine cone in there somewhere. Maybe there's some blackberries. Everything sticks to it. So baby fleece like that takes a long, long time after it's shorn to be able to make into yarn, because the first stage is to pick out all the debris. That takes a minimum of an hour by hand, or we put it on the picker and it does it for us.
Our
So,
students are wondering how long are alpacas pregnant for and when do
ah,
they usually have babies?
great question. So alpacas have an 11-month gestation. That means they carry babies for 11 months. That's a long time. So remember, their ancestors are camels. Camels had to adapt their reproduction to the desert. Remember, they're in Africa in the desert. If you're an animal that lives in the desert that has a big baby that's a mammal, you do not want to give birth in the middle of the summer. It's too hot. Likewise, if you're living up in the Andes at 12 or 14,000 feet, you don't want to give birth in the middle of the winter. It's really, really, really hard on the baby. So, in order to prevent that from happening, after 11 months, these guys can breed again in 2 weeks. And we keep males separate because you have to control breeding. So bloodlines are as important as show dogs, as important as racehorses. People um, be, spend a lot of money on alpacas, not as much anymore, but originally they were very expensive. So that's very important. So you hand select a male to come in with a female, and you put him into a stall together. And when he jumps up trying to breed her, he makes a noise called an orgle. That noise induces ovulation in the female. That's a trait handed down from camels. So that way they can have a baby, within a month be pregnant, and 11 months later have a baby at the same time next year. They're the only mammal species in the world that I'm aware of that does that. It's kind of a unique thing to alpacas.
Do you
So
have
you
any alpacas that are pregnant right now? And how many babies can they have at one time?
Great question. So we have right now we have about 8 or 9 alpacas that are pregnant. They will be able to. I'm sorry. How many do we have pregnant? And what was the end of that question? Oh, how many babies? Yes. So typically alpacas only have one baby. It is possible to have two, but in 33 years of doing this, my wife has never had an animal that gave birth to twins. Hi, babies. Come on, babies. So,
Our students
um,
are also wondering what kind of food do they eat, and is that different from what they would eat in the wild?
sure. Well, they primarily eat grass, and you saw them eating grass just a minute ago. Like a cow. Yes, these are ruminants. In other words, they chew their cud and they eat grass. So they have multiple stomachs. Grass is really hard to digest. So they chew their cud. That's kind of a term that a lot of people don't use anymore. What that means is when there's nothing to do, they take what's in their tummy, they pull it up into their mouth, and they rechew it and they swallow it all day long because they're breaking down the grass. And they have 3 stomachs to help them do that. The difference is when a cow gets mad at you, it doesn't pull it up and spit it at you. And it's very smelly, so we don't like that much. They don't really spit at people often. On shearing day, when they're super scared, yeah, on that day, on the average day, they're going to spit at each other saying, I'm first, spit, spit, spit. So we've never had an animal that gave birth to two.
Our students
So
are
we're
also
heading,
wondering what kind of sound do alpacas make?
oh, so alpacas hum. They say to each other all day long, they go, hmm. You're not hearing it right now because they're at home and they're really calm and they're used to kind of doing this every day when we have tours. But especially when we take them to events, like we took them every weekend in October this year to Halloween Town out in St. Helens. They paid us to bring them out there. When they're on a different place where they don't know, they get really nervous, and you can tell how nervous they are by how high their hum is. They say, I'm very happy. I'm scared. What's going on? When are we going home? So, yes, they hum. They also when they kind of get mad at each other, they kind of scream. They go, "What?" Sometimes that the boys will chase each other around. So males are much more vocal. They're more aggressive with each other too. We sell the vast majority of males that we produce because we like a calm farm. And if so, for instance, her brother, we already have both her father and her mother, his mother. We are probably going to sell him unless he replaces dad in the breeding program. It just makes things calmer. Some people just collect pet males. By the way, this is Argyle. He's our border collie. He wants us to throw the toy right now, but his job is not to herd the alpacas. His job is to entertain the people that come to the farm. So we're going to go in and see our barn store next. So we've got a little thing where 2 minutes. Great. So this is our barn store where we have alpaca products. This is what you get when you shear an alpaca. This is from one alpaca. This is about 5 pounds of fiber. So look at this. It feels like a cloud. This is so amazing. If this were sheep's wool, you'd have to wash it with soap and water about 8 times to take out lanolin, which is what sheep secrete to soften their fiber. Alpacas don't secrete it at all. They are hypoallergenic. This yarn is all made by my wife and her friends, silk and alpaca, and you take it and you knit things like that scarf and hat was spun by my wife off our animals, and her mother knitted that. So that's why you raise alpacas. Super, super warm clothes. And plus they're cuter than anything.
So
Sure.
it is time for our last question. Our students want
Sure.
to know, what are the males and females called?
Oh, good question. So alpacas. So a male and female alpaca is a dam, is a female. A male is actually in South America called a macho, because alpaca males kind of like to fight. So they're macho. And babies are called cria.
And lastly, what is your favorite part about the farm or just being an alpaca farmer?
Thing is, my wife suggested that I do this 5 years ago. This is my full-time job. I'm an alpaca tour guide. I meet people all over the world every day, and it's so fun for me to interact with them. And they love alpacas. And usually they say nice things about me too. Of course, I give them a tip if they do that. Well, thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
fun.
Doug, for taking the time to talk with students about Alpacas of Oregon. If you would like to visit in person, we'll be sure to include a link to their site along with a recording from today. Thank you to all the students in classrooms for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.